Not sure why the delay there. I'm bad at clicking buttons. Oh, hi, and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 142. I'm Tristan Jutra,
I'm Will Silver.
and you may have noticed not with us today is Gray Williams due to unforeseen circumstances, late cancellation there, and of course, our other missing quarter is Teja Kasodi, and that is due to inappropriate priorities and or time management. But that's fine. That's fine. We're not taking it personally, are we, Will?
No, you and me together at last.
And we were going to go see Ferrari tonight, but no, someone has a hospital appointment, and that's me. Sorry. So.
Oh, I thought you were going to say we have to, and guess who?
Guess who? Yeah, for a change, it's not
usually
you.
Me.
Okay. Oh, we got a flickering light here. So, shall we do this?
Let's do it.
Let's see how quickly we can get through this episode without talking too quickly.
Okay.
We'll see. First, let's start with a little follow-up. So last week, we talked about the Steamboat Willie 1928 version of Mickey Mouse going into the public domain, kind of. Mm-hmm. So it can be used for certain purposes. And basically the same day, obviously this had been worked on in advance, we saw a trailer drop for a game called Infestation Origins, which is looks like a survival horror game featuring none other than a monstrous version of Steamboat Willie. So it's kind of like what we saw with the release of Winnie the Pooh into the public domain. I believe that was last year. We saw there was a trailer for a horror movie called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, because for some reason people feel the need to destroy innocent childhood phenomena. Will, what were your thoughts of this Infestation game trailer? You all aboard? Being the big Disney fan you are, is this a fitting homage to Steamboat Willie?
No, I mean, first of all, hard pass. I am a Disney fan. This does anger me. I mean, people are free to use it as they wish, but it's not a very good usage, and I don't like it being used this way. I know people are sort of, pushing the limits or having fun with it by doing this, but it doesn't even make sense. Like, I don't even get the point. And then besides all of that, I'm not a big survival horror guy fan myself in terms of video games or movies. I've played a few survival horror video games like Dead Space, and even that one, great gameplay, great visuals, interesting story, and even then I had a hard time playing it. And on top of all of that, I'm just going to say this is just really poorly done. And I know it's a trailer, but I look at a lot of trailers. I look at a lot of video games as part of my job, and this is exceptionally poor. Exceptionally poor. So hard pass all the way around.
Well, maybe you're just being a little too hard on this. They had to do it in less than
I'm being nice. This is me being nice. I'm in a good mood at the moment.
Yeah,
you're lucky I'm not going any further with my other podcast, The Side Rant.
Coming soon. So yeah, it is what it is. Obviously, I'm not a fan of the genre. That's going to be a heavy lift there, and it's a little bit gimmicky. I mean, I get it. Infestation. Oh wow, we've got a rodent issue, and guess who the king rodent is? Who the alpha boss in this situation? But
so bad.
No,
I'm also going to say I've been part of what they call game jams or 24-hour game competitions, where people make video games from scratch in 24 hours or 3 days or a week or whatever it is. I've seen better results from that than this. Like, honestly.
And this has probably been worked on for quite a while too. It's not like they did it in one day.
No, this
They were
is
just ready to pull the
exceptionally
trigger.
poor.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We'll see when that's just the teaser. We'll see when there's more. But
I've seen teasers that have been done in a couple days from nothing that are better than that. Like, honestly, this is exceptionally poor.
All right. Well, just imagine if you could watch this in, extended reality or mixed reality, say on a headset coming soon for a few weeks from now. Just a little bit more follow-up here. We have a release date for the Apple Vision Pro. So this message came from Apple last week. Apparently, starting on January 19th at 8 a.m. Eastern, it's 5 a.m. Pacific for us, you'll be able to order an Apple Vision Pro headset to ensure your spot in the company's vision of spatial computing. And so basically you'll be able to book demonstrations and go in and get outfitted. You've got to, if you wear glasses, you won't be able to wear those in this device. You would have to use contact lenses. So you can get fitted for custom Zeiss lenses. There'll be an additional charge for that. It looks like the base model configuration is $34.99 US for the 256 gigabyte model. This is basically an entire computer on your face. And it seems if you had a multi-person household that had corrective lenses, probably be better to wear contacts. And that's because we're kind of struggling with that here. We're thinking of getting one. I think I mentioned previously, I got the okay from Stephanie for us to get one of these to explore, because we're an online training development company. There could be some really interesting practical applications for a device like this. But we both wear corrective lenses, and we don't necessarily want to get two of these, at least to start. So if to actually try it out, it might be better for us to use our contacts, so we're not having to slide different corrective lenses in and out of the device itself, because that could be a bit of a hassle. Anyhow, so that's one little bit of info. And then just yesterday we heard that, or earlier today we heard that Apple really wants us to call the Apple Vision Pro spatial computing. They've avoided as much as possible using the terms VR, virtual reality, AR, augmented reality, MR, mixed reality, or XR, extended reality. And those are all terms used by others such as Meta with their Oculus headsets, and not to mention what was the Microsoft, they had their HoloLens thing, and all sorts of other devices that are out there. You'll also notice that Apple has never shown any of their executives wearing these in photos or in video clips too, which is kind of interesting. I think they're trying to save as much as possible for, to show people using it in their controlled, highly produced videos, or getting to use it themselves in person. And by most accounts that we've heard, everyone who's had a demo of this has been blown away. And so it seems here that Apple's really trying to tightly control the experience and let people judge it for themselves. Will, any initial thoughts before we get into the other little wrinkle around the Apple Vision Pro?
No, just I'd like to try it. Probably won't be pre-ordering it, but I'm not a first person in the transporter type of guy, even when it comes to my money, not just my health. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. I'm definitely interested. I like the concept. I just, so far every implementation of spatial computing or AR or VR or whatever you want to call it has not convinced me that it's a game changer.
In the meantime, at CES, there was a company called XREAL, formerly XREAL, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it was formerly XREAL and now they're XREAL. They've got something called the Air 2 Ultra, which they're also using the phrase spatial computing, but they've got glasses that look much lighter weight. I am almost certain the capabilities will not be quite the same. It's going to be a fraction of the price, of course. Don't have, let's see what the price is for this. We can pre-order the XREAL 2 Ultra, XREAL Air 2 Ultra for $699 US. So yeah, that is a fraction of the price of the Apple devices, but looks like a lot lighter, a lot more streamlined, but we will see what the actual capabilities are. Apple is obviously going is high-end, premium, no expense spared, and then I think with subsequent revisions, we will see either the price come down or they will have less expensive versions. And their dream, obviously, is to get to a lighter type of version like this. So the space is heating up. But the funny thing is, was another little revelation that came out, is apparently Jony Ive, as according to some patents that were revealed recently, Jony Ive, former chief design officer of Apple, had imagined the Vision Pro giving you zoom eyes and sunglasses. So in this patent disclosure, it showed all sorts of different types of displays or images you could display on the outward-facing screen. In Apple's demos of the Apple Vision Pro, they had this sophisticated way using internal cameras and lots of processing to show a rendering of your own eyes to the outside world, so you could interact with people in a very slightly less creepy way than keeping this, than not having an image, or having with less hassle than having to take this thing off your face. And then when you're busy, it would just show this kind of cloudy, almost Siri interface like the color blob on the glasses to show that you're busy. Well, Apple's patent shows all sorts of different stuff that you could have facing outwards, like hearts, or the weather, or photos, or do not disturb imagery, or you could play other display other kinds of photos or videos, or even like replace your eyes with other icons. They almost remind me of some previous Pet Shop Boys outfits that you may recall from different album covers and promotional shots back in the day. I don't know if we're actually going to see these things in the real world for Apple, if they were just covering their bases with the patent here. But Will, if you did go down the Apple Vision Pro route, would you like the ability to display whatever you wanted on the outside?
At this point, I don't think so. But I mean, I'm not using it, so
let me
maybe if I
rephrase
was.
this. Let me rephrase it. What if you had the ability? What would you display on the outside, as opposed to just like cloudy blobs or your own eyes? Maybe to show people that you were busy doing something in the virtual world, interacting with vintage Vestax mixers in the metaverse. Although Apple is not using the word metaverse as well. What kind of serious or playful or otherwise type of imagery would you want on the outside of your Vision Pro, either to interact with people or to tell them that you're busy?
Well, if I was busy, maybe like X eyes, like a dead cartoon character.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, how about like creepy Simpson eyes?
Creepy Simpsons eyes, sure.
Or like 8-bit. You could do like 8-bit eyes.
Oh, 8-bit would be cool. I was thinking cat's eyes as well, because you know how I have an obsession with cats.
But Apple is notorious for not letting people customize things too much. Witness the home screens of iPhones and iPads, for example. It's only in recent years through a number of additional steps have they let you do any kind of creative things with your home screens, including add widgets and whatnot. But changing icons and whatnot is a huge pain. You've got to use shortcuts and custom icons applied to those shortcuts to launch your apps. It's so and watch faces on Apple Watches as well. Apple has been very reluctant to allow a third-party watch face store on Apple Watch, because they don't want to crap up people's outward-facing Apple Watches because it reflects poorly on the brand. So maybe the same kind of thing here. If they did allow people to have stuff on the outward-facing display aside from their defaults, I suspect it would be pretty tightly controlled.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we shall find out in early February when these things finally start shipping. Last year, Apple had said early 2024, and they weren't kidding. So stay tuned, watch this space, and we'll see if we can actually. I think it's going to be US only to start, which makes things complicated for us, but we'll see how that goes. But we've got some new news now. Oh, well, remember the Consumer Electronics Show, International CES?
It was the highlight of my life,
including my wedding. Got to go together. And
yes.
Then everyone gets to enjoy CES flu. Friends of the show, Tom Merritt from DTNS, he's down there right now. I think other friend of the show, Andy Barrar, is down there as well. And maybe someday we'll get down there again. But it's not free, and you go homesick with CES flu, so there's a price to be paid. in lifespan. But all sorts of announcements coming from the pre-show days, Sunday and Monday, and then today was the first official full day at CES. And I'm sure we're going to see even more interesting things we can talk about next week from Showstoppers, which is going on tonight, and Eureka Park, and where all the smaller companies are doing their stuff. We're going to focus on some of the larger highlights. CES is well known for TVs. We can talk about TVs in a moment, but let's start with there's a new Steam Deck Challenger from MSI. I'm just going to speed run through a few of these, Will, and then we can talk about some of the things that stick out to you. Samsung is teasing a new phone called the Flex In and Out Flip, which not only folds open, but folds all the way back. And it looks like it would be kind of scary to do that if you feel like you're busting it. There's no outward facing screens on this phone, oddly enough, unlike some of the other flip and fold models we've seen. But this one lets you use it with two sides with outward facing screens. So when you close it up, there's nothing, and it's like a full on clamshell phone. So maybe that'll appeal to someone. We've got some more gaming laptops, a thermometer that also checks your heart and lungs, because that's something we all needed. Let's see here. Stained glass. Some new automotive announcements. VW had announced an in-car assistant, which you summon saying, "Hey, Ida," and basically it's being powered by ChatGPT, where you can talk to your car. Now, if they're able to tie it into the car's system, so you can change settings without having to use your hands, keep your eyes on the road, that might be handy. Will, how would you like to be able to talk to your car and get it to do things for you and interact even more so than we're able to with CarPlay?
No.
Well, what if they keep hiding all the functions in these god-awful giant displays nowadays, and you want to access a setting that's three menus deep? Don't you think it would be nice to... Hey, Ida, open the freaking glove box.
That might be somebody useful, but I think a lot of that stuff I would do before I started going,
But sometimes, like with some cars now, we're seeing they're hiding more and more into these menus or controls. Like I think the Kia EV6 had a strip of capacitive touch controls, but you had to touch another button to switch to another layer of controls that switch between the audio controls and the climate control controls, for lack of a better word, which is a lot of reviewers commented on as being a little bit annoying. Some car makers are actually going back to some physical controls, which I appreciate it, being an old, I suppose. But even just being able to have more nuanced conversations with your car, is beyond simply getting directions and whatnot, but asking things, perhaps about the weather, about the news, about when we get these agent GPTs up and running, making reservations for you somewhere and the like. Just think of anything that you can do with a large language model or chatbot like ChatGPT or Google Bard, being able to do that on the road. It's just we're only limited by our imagination as well.
Sure.
That's what VW thinks anyhow. All right.
Yes.
We'll get to TVs. Oh, hey, a 2-minute ice cream maker called Cold Snap.
Nice. Okay, I'm all on that.
Robot Stain Fighter, a new floor cleaner from Samsung called the JetBot Combo. So not just vacuums, but also washes your floors. We've seen a few of those. More teeth tech. I'm not even going to get into that. We'll talk about maybe this a bit more next week, hopefully when Gray's back, seeing as he was a BlackBerry bunny from the day, but back in the day. But last week, we had the Clicks keyboard being announced for the iPhone 14 Pro or iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, which adds a BlackBerry-style keyboard to the one on the phone. Mm-hmm. Makes it a little tall, but of course, people are going to get some hands-on time with this at CES. Mm-hmm. There's always so much stuff at CES. Oh yeah, there you go. You can bring Fortnite, play Fortnite in your car. Yeah, Sony and Honda are still working on their Afeela EV, which we talked about at some point last year here on Momentous Live with their car concepts. But with all these giant screens in the cars, now we'll be able to play some video games on them too. That's exactly what we need. Play. Oh, this is maybe we'll get into more of this next week at Eureka Park, where some of these smaller companies are. There's a device that tells you when you need to pee. That could come in handy when we go long on this show.
Yeah. I think I usually know that, but
But sometimes if the nerves aren't working so well down there when you get old like me, or
look,
it creeps up on you, yeah, it's nice to have a little heads up.
there's some people this could be useful for, but
Mhm.
it's a 1%.
We've also got, speaking of foldables, Asus Zen Fold monitor. It's not so much a laptop. We've seen
Mm.
laptops with foldable screens, and virtual keyboards. But this is a portable, just a full straight up monitor that has foldable screen, so you can extend it all the way to like a 17 inches or so. It's got a nice little case for it. I've actually been exploring external monitors for portable use, like when we're doing live streams, could be handy. So something like this might be a space saver, as opposed to carrying something like full size around with you when you've only got a 13 or 15-inch laptop. Having something that's maybe the size of a 12 or 13-inch laptop but expands to the size of a 17-inch external monitor could be handy. Of course, there's a number of AI announcements, Walmart getting in the game, Walmart doing drone deliveries. That's some news as well. Interactive TV may be finally happening. So anyway, there's always so much, and we're going to get into more some of the esoteric stories from CES next week. On the TV front, one of the things that was garnering headlines was a transparent OLED, organic light emitting diode
Yes.
TV, from LG, which when you're
Mhm.
not watching shows, it can have, it's kind of like having an alpha channel, like with PNG graphic files.
Yeah.
You can have
Yeah.
stuff on the screen, and then whatever selected color, you can have a transparent background, and it could just be like art in the
Yeah.
background there. Now I know you just got a swishy new OLED TV last year, Will.
Mhm.
Any of the other things that we're seeing here, such as a glare-free OLED TV from Samsung, a gigantic 115-inch mini LED TV from TCL, a 110-inch from Hisense, a transparent micro LED screen from Samsung, so similar to the LG one, except instead of being OLED, it's micro LED. So transparent seems to be the thing this year. Every year at CES, it's with the TVs, there seems to be a bit
Mhm.
of a theme. An additional wireless OLED TV from LG, where if you've got, I guess, cabling issues, this isn't their first generation. This is an iteration of this, but I guess that's handy for people in some situations. So, what among the sorts of TV announcements we're seeing so far, including, sorry, just one more to throw at us here. There's a foldable TV that was mentioned in this other article. Foldable TV from Seed, whoever they are, 137-inch foldable. I don't know why you need that. Maybe to pack it away. It's only 200 grand. Well, anyhow, I
Yeah.
suspect that's
I'm
not on your
good.
shopping list. But from those other sorts of,
No.
the transparent, the glare-free, the large sizes and whatnot, what speaks to you most in the direction some of these companies are going to get us to upgrade our TVs?
Yeah, I like the transparent. I thought that was interesting, either the Samsung or the LG. I really like that idea. Obviously, I have to see how it actually
In the
works
real world?
in
Yeah, yeah.
reality, but yeah, I mean, I love the idea of having something transparent. I mean, I love all these like cool sort of HUDs in real life that don't require a screen or a set of goggles. Um, I mean, a screen in terms of like something in front of your
Mm-hmm.
eyes. But yeah, I love the idea of something like that. So if it was actually implemented well, then I'd definitely be
Yeah, we're
interested
kind
in
of a
it.
little bit Minority Report sort of vibes with these transparent screens from
Exactly.
Samsung and
I'm all in
yeah,
for that. Yeah.
and LG. So we'll see how they look in the real world. I think one angle that these companies are going for is kind of like along the lines of the Samsung Frame TV series, where the
Mm,
TVs sort of disappear into the background when you're not using them, as opposed to having like just a big black rectangle on your wall or on
yeah.
your TV stand when not in use. And some people don't really dig
Yeah.
the aesthetics of that. Having something that, like the Samsung Frame TVs, where they are, I mean, they're not super great as TVs themselves compared to some other options like OLEDs, but they are very close to looking like actual artwork on your walls. Friend of the show, Jamie Reynolds, has one in his living room where they watch more and more of their TV now, as opposed to going downstairs to their TV room with their big old plasma, which is still holding up after all these years. They have a Panasonic, but the Samsung frame, when you're not using it, it just looks like you got a piece of art on the wall, and there's all sorts of ways you can customize that, and it's pretty cool. This is kind of taking that one level further, where it's not just it's stationary art, but it could be animated art with with the transparent background. So it could be in some ways a bit more subtle, but in other ways it kind of draws attention to itself. I mean, one of the examples they showed is sort of like a virtual aquarium, which is kind of cute. So and then of course you're just leaving the stuff on all the time, which is great.
Yeah.
At least electricity's cheap, right?
Yeah, exactly. Certainly something to think about.
Yeah. So anyway, it's like, so as usual, TVs at CES are always a big thing. Oddly, Sony this year is not really launching new TVs. They kind of pre-announced their TVs back in the fall, so they're kind of off cycle now, which is an interesting approach. But like I said, next week we'll get into some of the wild and wacky things. Maybe we'll dig into the toothbrush. I remember one year there was the Happy Fork, a smart fork that helped keep track of what you were eating and whatnot. But
I remember that as well.
So it seems so far the transparent TV might be the winner. We'll see. With a lot of these things we see at CES, they're concepts. Some of them are great ideas in theory, but in practice maybe not so great. But there's always that.
You don't have your Happy Fork?
I wonder if Andy got to keep one. Anyhow, let's move on, shall we? We got a little bit of entertainment news. So yeah, put a pin in this. We'll talk about some more oddball CES stuff next week as we get more details over the next couple of days. CES goes all week there in Las Vegas. So I picked this one just for you, Will. Star Wars announces new movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu, from director Jon Favreau, who brought us the first Mandalorian series. Did he direct season 2 as well, or at least he produced them both, right?
Well, they shifted directors. Right. I mean, so there wasn't just one director. Like Bryce Howard directed some episodes, Jon Favreau. Right. So I don't think Jon Favreau directed any episodes in season 1, but so there's been multiple directors. Usually the one director maybe directs like 2 or 3 episodes.
Just to get it going, and then they're kind of in charge of the vision going forward. Yeah. So like we saw with Dave Filoni and so what do we need a Mandalorian and Grogu movie? Is this I don't know if this is in lieu of a season 3 or if this is in addition to a season 3. I mean, we've talked about the danger of oversaturation of Star Wars. What are your general thoughts on hearing this news?
Well, I don't know if there's needs to be a movie, or we could just have another season or a mini series or something. The other thing is it's a small sample size, but the Marvels did not do well in the cinemas. And one of the things that people have said and there's multiple reasons that people have pointed to, but one of them is people didn't watch the shows that 2 of the characters were in, and didn't feel A, attached to the character, or B, knew what was going on, or even were very interested in
those shows being Ms. Marvel with Kamala Khan, and WandaVision, which featured what's her name? The other Rambeau.
Monica Rambeau, and she's Spectrum.
Right.
Although I can't remember if they've actually named her that in the.
So if people don't know those backstories, then they're like, who are these people again? And I can see how that's confusing.
Yeah. So I mean, and there's other reasons. Some people don't like Brie Larson. Some people don't like Brie Larson as Miss Marvel. Some people don't like the character of Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel. Yeah. Sorry, I should say Captain Marvel. Right. Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, not Miss Marvel. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but one of them has been pointed out that some of this stuff happened in a show. I do also hear it in some of the shows, like Boba Fett. People were like, oh, I didn't know I had to know so much about The Mandalorian. I thought I was just watching a Boba Fett show. So that is a complaint you hear about people not wanting to have to watch everything. Now, I would say people who do watch everything really love it because of that. So it may not be for everyone. And I do feel like things like the Marvels tried to catch people up on the shows, and typically movies will give you a little bit of backstory before they launch into it if they're a sequel. So I mean, yes, do you get more if you watch all the stuff? Yes, but lots of things try to make it accessible. It is getting kind of extreme with all these shows and all the seasons and seasons of Rebels and Clone Wars in the Star Wars universe. But I do feel like that was definitely a criticism of the Marvels. Well, whether this would affect the Mandalorian and Grogu show, I don't know. They're much more popular characters than Miss Marvel or Monica Rambeau. So we just have to see.
And that's a real balancing act that the producers have to do for launching movies and not making people feel like they've got to do a whole lot of homework before going to see it. Like, I watch 30 Marvel movies before seeing the next one, or you want to make things, like you said, accessible for folks. And it's even more complicated when you're expecting people to watch a whole bunch of TV before going to see a movie, because it's not necessarily the same target audience. I mean, there's obviously a lot of crossover, but some people's like, oh, a new Star Wars movie, I'll go see that, even if they haven't watched all of the series on Disney Plus. Not everyone subscribes to Disney Plus. So make it accessible, being able to catch people up, like you say, on the backstory, but make it strong enough as a standalone. You have sort of a similar but issue with the Ahsoka TV series. It seems to be a lot of the opinions on that were really divided along generational lines. I found from conversations I've had with other friends of the show, and people just not relating to the characters and the stories and whatnot. And what I found from online commentary, just the little bit that I've seen, I generally try to avoid it. And even from feedback from people like you and Gray, and even Ged, I mean, you're all a bit younger than me, that people who seem to appreciate Ahsoka the most were the people who were most intimately familiar with a lot of the post-Star Wars prequels TV series, like Star Wars Rebels and The Bad Batch and Clone Wars and all that sort of stuff, where you're introduced to some of these characters ahead of time. And so there's all this fan service that's going on, or Easter eggs, or just straight up, hey, this is like a fifth season of Star Wars Rebels, which a lot of people would have been waiting for and they're excited to see. But if you're coming in cold, especially as an old like me, and you're still just really attached to the original trilogy, and maybe a few other bits and pieces here and there, such as Rogue One, which I really liked, and Andor, which I really liked. And you come in, it's like, well, who are all these people? What's the deal with space whales, et cetera, some of which we've talked about before. I mean, I still appreciated it, but I probably didn't appreciate it as much as people who had seen all those additional TV series in the meantime. And this is in the pre-Disney Plus era, where it was a little more work to actually find them.
I totally agree. One more thing I'll just throw out there is this is sort of a sidestep, but as you know, I'm a big Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars fan, and many other things, but those are three of my big ones. I also love Disney parks, which I think I've said multiple times here. And I'm a big fan of Galaxy's Edge, which is the Star Wars themed land that's at Disney World and Disneyland. I've only been to the Disneyland version. And, they set that in a time period in the Star Wars timeline. And it's between episode 7 and 8. And, a lot of people complain because where's Darth Vader? Where's Luke? They've got Kylo Ren. Yeah, exactly. So they're starting to try to introduce some characters like Boba Fett and stuff from the shows. But, and I think they might even had Hera and Chopper out there, but they're very slow to do that. And really, in some ways, they misread the audience. They listened to their hardcore fans, which I think you should. And I'm usually for that. And I'm a hardcore fan of a lot of things. So I like people listening to me. But in some ways, the mass audience doesn't want that. They don't want to go to Star Wars Land and see Ahsoka.
Mhm.
They want to go and see Darth Vader. That's like the most common thing, which is funny to me because I don't even like Darth Vader. Like, I always think he's a villain. Like, I don't want to see Darth Vader. I'd rather see Han Solo and Princess Leia and Chewbacca.
Right.
You know, and Chewbacca is there, but it's older Chewbacca.
Oh.
But anyways, I digress.
What about his family from the holiday special?
Yeah, no. Although they have a Life Day celebration,
Perfect.
which is what was from the Star Wars Christmas special. They were celebrating Life Day, so they do have a Life Day celebration. No. But they do hold the red. They do wear the red cloaks and hold the orbs. So yeah, no, it's awesome. We have just lost half our audience.
Now, as for a Mandalorian movie, I wonder, like, because most folks seem to enjoy the first season of Mandalorian when it came out, and then was it then that season then Book of Boba Fett came out and reactions?
No, I think they did season 2 and then they did Boba Fett, but I could be wrong.
But a lot of people were not pleased with Boba Fett, and it was obviously I thought it was a lot weaker, especially, and they at the end they kind of had to rescue it with a bit more Mandalorian in there, and the second season of Mandalorian was okay, but it seemed like people kind of soured on it, and then that tends to taint their view of the earlier stuff that they watched. That combined with spending a little too much time online. So I hope the well hasn't been poisoned for the Mandalorian, at least to the old school fans, like maybe the newer school fans and kids especially. I mean, people love Grogu, and people still refer to him as Baby Yoda, even though it's not Yoda. But so we'll see. Hopefully it's a good story. I mean, that's like the bottom line with a lot of the discussions. Like, whatever you're going to do with the types of characters you have and who you're going to cast and the mix of genders and races and species and all that kind of stuff, and wherever in the timeline is, if it's a good story, that goes a long way to getting people on board. So, wow, do we have a release date for this? I didn't. Because I know there's not a lot of.
I didn't see one.
2026.
2027.
Yeah, and then another. So an untitled Star Wars movie is coming for 2026, and then a third Star Wars adventure coming December 2027. So when is this one? It doesn't.
I think it might have said it. It's not.
Yeah. Okay. Because we're kind of in a desert of actual Star Wars movies, and there's been the shows and stuff.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Fair.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, don't crank them out just to have something there.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of cranking things out, let's move to our momentous picks this week, Will. And
yes.
And speaking of homework for people, the nice thing about your pick is that the stories kind of stand alone. So season 2 of
What If? Which I think we talked about season 1, but basically it's a bunch of snippets and standalone stories, which do have a bit of an overarching connection, but they do also stand alone. And it's kind of nice in that way. You get to see different slices of things that never existed in the main Marvel universe, and we get to see other little side stories. It is exceptional. I really think it's really good.
It only started December 22nd, and you're all the way through it?
Yeah. So instead of releasing one a week for 7 weeks or however many episodes there were, they just basically released them 1 or 2 a day for like 4 or 5 days. So it was right around Christmas. If you missed it, it's totally understandable. It was like the 2 weeks around Christmas.
That's a good time. People are chilling, and let's catch up on some.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's better than season 1. If you like season 1, I think it's better. I would say the conclusion is not as epic as the first season, but I really enjoyed it. Also, I mean, this is just public knowledge. It's in the trailer, so I'm not saying too much inside, and I'll be very vague. But it's the first time that What If has had an original character that's not in the MCU or in the comic books. So they have come up with their own original character. I thought they did an exceptional job of introducing it. I am very critical about rehash characters or escalation of power. I could go hours and hours about how I don't like that a lot of the time in comic books or in the MCU. And I thought that they handled it just perfectly, and they did it the way you should be doing it, and introducing a character without just hamstringing established characters. I really thought it was a good way of building a character without building it on top of somebody. And I thoroughly enjoyed that episode. And there's 3 or 4 episodes that are just absolutely top notch.
Well, all I have to say to that is, what are they doing messing around with making new characters when they still haven't given Howard the Duck his due?
Oh, we might see Howard the Duck there. You might want to see Howard the Duck.
I want to see live action Howard the Duck, though. They need to salvage
he had his time.
He had his time.
He had his time.
There was so much.
You get one chance.
There was so much potential. My Uncle Fred was a big fan of the Howard the Duck comic books.
I love Howard the Duck.
Exposure to him originally in the late 70s, early 80s there, but
he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. He was playing poker.
Barely. I think it'll come. I'm holding out hope. So, well, one of the problematic elements I find of something like What If, and they did manage with season 1 to mitigate this somewhat, is that, and this is the same with the comic books, but especially when you're watching a TV show, and there's a lot of people who maybe aren't so, it kind of comes off as like an anthology series, right? Where, there's different stories from episode to episode. And because it's what if, it's all hypothetical, that's the whole the whole notion of the original comic book series, is that there's really not much in the way of stakes in the long term. And we've been so used to these overarching stories that last for years, if not decades now, that we've seen with the MCU, for example, that to go into something where it's like, oh, well, we watch this one show and then something happens and then it's done and it's over, and then who really cares? Like I said, for season 1, they did kind of mitigate that a little bit, because the implication was that all these stories were kind of part of the multiverse. How did you find their approach was for season 2? Without, again,
it's very similar. Okay. I would say that's actually hard cook. Look, as my wife says, you can please none of the people none of the time. This is a criticism of the show, is that it's not one-off enough for some comic book fans who are fans of this, that they carry it on too much, that there's too much interconnection. I would say I like that. And it does sort of vaguely imply that it's part of a multiverse, or I think explicitly say that this is a multiverse. I should be, to be honest. And there are some connections between episodes. I think also, and this is partly speculative, some of these characters are going to come back in other things, even live action. There's been a lot of talk, especially, and again, you could have probably seen this from the first season, like Captain Carter, like, she's a very popular character. She's actually becoming part of the Marvel universe just in general, and like, you're going to see her in other things. I've heard rumors. I don't know if there's any more expansion on that, but there's a lot of speculation that they're going to bring that character into the MCU or into other applications. And there are a lot of people who would be in for that. I like that character. I know it is, having said what I just said a few minutes ago, about building off existing characters, but this is one of the exceptions to that. I actually do like that character quite a bit, just because I like, Agent Carter in general.
And the TV series was great too. Stephanie and I both enjoyed that quite a bit. A great actress who plays her. Was it Haley Stanfield? Is that her name?
Yeah, and I like that actress very much. And so I am all in on that. So I would be interested in that. There's a couple other characters that have been mentioned. There's a Marvel zombie spin-off show that's in development.
Because there was a zombie episode in season 1 of What If, wasn't there?
In season 1, yeah. There's not, spoiler alert, there's not in season 2, probably because they're doing a breakout thing. And I greatly enjoyed that episode. I thought the little team that they were developing in that episode was great. So I think you're going to see more stakes more characters that overlap and are in other things. As I said, there's a completely original character. I don't think they would have done that if we're not going to see that character more. So I think you're going to see some of these characters appear in other things. One of my very close friends, his daughter just loves Agent Carter, and she loves female heroines, and because she has a brother, and she always likes to sort of identify with female characters, and she loves Agent Carter. So yeah, I think it's great to have these characters for people who want to identify with them and see other representation in superhero stories,
especially when they can do it right and not make it
mere
tokenism or unrealistic or like unusually powerful. And like in the case of Captain Marvel, I think that's one of the things that annoyed people. And it's like, the unearned, the stolen.
I don't even think Captain Marvel is the worst example. I actually don't have as big a problem with Captain Marvel as some people that again, I'm a comic book guy, so I could tell you a number of characters in the comic books that bother me, and some of them have appeared in the MCU and some of them haven't. But yeah, anyways, I digress.
At the risk of us talking about What If Season 2 more than we talked about CES, let's move on to
well, hey, you got the comic book guy on, so
worst episode ever. All right.
Indeed.
So my momentous pick was a movie, Will, that you and I saw together a couple of weeks ago that I thoroughly enjoyed. I was intrigued by the trailer, even though I've never been a big wrestling fan per se. And I was intrigued by the cast, which included Jeremy Allen White from The Bear, which was one of my favorite shows of the last couple of years, the 2 seasons. Not to mention Zac Efron, who looks totally changed and a bit of a beast. So that movie was The Iron Claw, which was the true story of the Von Erich brothers, who made history in the intensely competitive world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s. And I was not familiar with this story at all. And boy, was it tragic. And it turns out there's even one brother that they didn't even include in the story as well. And that's another tragic tale as well. And I heard an interview with the director since we saw the movie, Will, and basically confirming what we had suspected in that, that his situation actually was pretty similar to one of the other brothers, and for the tightness of storytelling, it made sense to actually make a composite of the 2 brothers rather than just basically repeating themselves in the storytelling. So, and you got to do that sometimes for movies, as unfortunate as it might be. But apparently, that was approved by the main brother through whose eyes most of this story is told, Zac Efron's character. And is it Kevin Von Erich that he plays, or is it Carrie? I can't remember.
Kevin.
Yeah. So hey, nailed it. So I really appreciate the acting. The story itself, like I said, is tragic. It's just an interesting look into a world that I was not very familiar with from the early 1980s wrestling. Oddly enough, I don't think I ever told you this, Will, I did have some exposure to wrestling as it was a bit in the maybe on Canadian TV in the late 70s, early 80s. My
Stampede Wrestling.
Yeah, whatever it was called. I remember
All-Star Wrestling.
I don't even remember. I just remember my parents' godson, who I used to call my god brother. His dad was really into that wrestling of that era. And so when I would go to their place over town, they would sometimes have it on TV, and it was just like a mystery to me. And then my buddy Chris in high school was a bit into WWF at the time, now WWE. I was always really annoyed when wrestling would preempt Saturday Night Live, or maybe they would just play it in place of Saturday Night Live when Saturday Night Live would take weeks off. But regardless of all that, oddly enough, I think the story here, like I saw the movie The Wrestler, which is obviously quite different, but I've enjoyed the Rocky movies, like ostensibly boxing movies. We've seen the 3 Creed movies together as well, and
I love Creed. I love Rocky.
So
I love all
I think there's some similarities here, but this is just like, again, laced with so much more tragedy. But then like Zac Efron, like I said, just totally unrecognizable and quite a revelation in terms of his acting ability. So that's my impression of the Iron Claw. Really enjoyed it, and I figured that you might be game to see it too. What were your quick thoughts and impressions, and how it met or didn't meet your expectations based on what you knew about the story.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. I thought the acting was great. I thought they structured it well and told the story very well. I thought they represented wrestling really well. They made it a real thing, and they sort of saw it from a very realistic point of view as those who are in it. I mean, not being someone who's in it myself, but knowing some of the behind the scenes where they gave it sort of a real lot of credibility and didn't just you know make it cheesy or exaggerate it like it was a real story. These are real people, they're real tragedies. It was really compelling movie. It's a really compelling story to start with, but you can always mess that up. So I really enjoyed it. I the Von Erichs. I'm most familiar with Kerry, who was the Texas Tornado in WWF at the time. So I only knew, in when all this took place, Kerry Von Erich would have been the one I would have known the best. But later, after most of the events of this movie happened, I watched, past shows, and I used to listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts and YouTube clips. So, in the last 10 years, I've definitely been very familiar with this story, all the brothers. And yeah, I mean, it's an amazing story, and they're amazing people. And, Kevin, you just got to feel for him just so much. I mean, he's still alive. And I feel like we're giving away too much of the story, but it's remarkable. The other thing I'll say watching it is I knew most of the story. I mean, some of the details I've forgotten, but like the through points I knew, like all the major events, I knew what happened. And I didn't say anything to you because I just wanted you to experience it. I wasn't sure what you knew about it or and like in some ways I'm like, should I warn him that this is going to go tits up pretty quick, or should I just let it happen? And I think it was a good decision for me not to pre-warn you
I
about
appreciate the
anything
surprise.
and just yeah.
So we seem to be pretty good about movies that we talk about when trailers come out, and talk about our interest. We mentioned the Iron Claw back in September, and it did not disappoint. I mean, and similarly in the past, we've pumped up Oppenheimer, we've pumped up the Andor TV series, and you kind of get an idea of things you're going to like before you see them, and then there's things that you hope you're going to like and sometimes disappoint you a little bit. But this is one where, like, I just had zero expectations. It looked cool, like, is intriguing, not really the kind of thing I maybe would normally see on my own, and so I'm glad I've got my my wrestling buddy Will to go and see stuff like this with. So
well,
thank
and as you said too, I mean, I think part of it is obviously we have our things that we won't watch, but I always like to keep an open mind, and I know you're the same, so we kind of share those interests together. I'll even go to the odd scary movie with you from time to time, and I'm not a big scary movie fan, but you've introduced me to a lot of bands. I think I've introduced you to some bands. We've gone to movies, so I think that's part of the nice thing, is trying to expose yourself. Well,
yeah, so to speak.
I should, yeah. You don't want me exposing myself to quote Ghostbusters, but yeah, expose yourself to new genres, new artists, and I think that can be good as well. So I think that's one of the beauties of our friendship, and
that's kind of the point of us.
Thank you for being game.
Hey, and that's part of our the whole point of our momentous picks, is to share the things we appreciate with each other, so that even if we haven't had a chance to enjoy them together, that we might go and explore them on our own, and then maybe get together for the next installments of any given.
That's why I love this show. That's why I love doing it, and why I'm here most weeks.
All right, let's move on to our momentous projects this week. Will, you got some more beats for us, do you?
Yeah, so I just came out with another looper. It was pretty quickly after my previous looper. This one is called Deadbeat. I just loved the name, so I had to. I was so proud of myself. There, yes. So yeah, so
it's not Deadbeat Dad. It's just Deadbeat.
Deadbeat. Yeah. So this is out on tableless.net, the website and the app. Table Beats app search for Molotov. And this is, there's a bit of a theme here. There's some beats that I sat on for a while and I thought maybe I wasn't going to use. Some of them were for projects that didn't go anywhere or are sort of, weren't released. And some of them just have long pauses. So, that's why it was deadbeat. There's dead space on a couple of them, sparse. So it was sort of a collection of themes, and I felt that name kind of fit. So just some sort of unreleased and some darker beats and some fun.
So if you want to catch such timeless classics as Shell Toes and Shenanigans, When the Venom Kicks In, and Tacoma Deathmatch, which I particularly like the sounds of, visit tableless.net to check out Molotov's Deadbeat and other beat collections of beats there. Very cool. Of course, our lovely and talented Tasia Custodi has yet another video. This one again in the Google universe. Google Chrome updates 2024. What's new in Google Chrome? That's one thing about Chrome since it's been out for 10, 15 years now. They continue to iterate and iterate and iterate. And Tasia recaps some of the top new features in Google Chrome for you to explore in a much more succinct way than we ever could on this show. Speaking of Tasia, she and I did another episode last week of AI Named This Show, where we were looking ahead to the upcoming year of AI, the kinds of things we were expecting, the kinds of things we were hoping for. And check it out. We'll have another episode, of course, dropping on Fridays. They're usually Fridays midday, and you can find those at www.ainamedthisshow.com. And if you're interested in following what we have to do, what we do here on a regular basis at good old Momentous, you can visit us at momentous.tv, www.momentous.tv. I like to have the wwws in there, again, being one of the olds.
Yeah.
So various pages on there. The homepage always has our most recent episode of our live stream. We've got a team page where you can explore all our social accounts from our various team members. And then we also have a links page, which is one that we promote most frequently, which has links to all the Momentous various social accounts, and then the podcast page where we archive the audio versions of all our past podcasts. So we're up to 142 episodes now. Well, can you believe it?
It's crazy.
We're coming up to a 3-year anniversary in a couple of months here. And for those who are interested, next week we will, in addition to talking about some of the maybe CES oddities that we need a chance to dig into this evening, because we had to spend so much time talking about What If Season 2, the Samsung Galaxy S24 should be launched this coming week, just January 17th. Actually, are we going to, we'll have another so it'll be next Tuesday. So we'll have a near real-time update on Samsung Unpacked, another one of their semi-annual events. Well, they'll be releasing the Galaxy S24 line of phones and devices. So that's why you got to come back and tune in every week to Momentous Live, whether it's live or it's Memorex. Podcast. There you go. Will, we did it.
Awesome.
Just the two of us. Hopefully we'll have some more next week. But until then,
I
hope your week is truly momentous.